Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Earthworm Jim. In the last one, went through the Sega CD exclusive level and ended off with the Snot level, and now welcome to level 5, which I should note, no matter which version of the game you play, is never actually level 5. Sometimes it's level 6, sometimes it's level 7, sometimes it's level 8, depending on what you count as extended levels, additional levels, and bonus levels like anti-asteroids. Either way, to avoid confusion in some versions of the game, this is known as Professor Monkey for a Head or Monkey for a Head's Lab, things like that. Either way, to get the level's bio out of the way before I forget about it, the Professor would love to have Earthworm Jim on the dissection table, but that darn super suit keeps him safe. The Professor wants that suit back. After all, he designed it for the Queen. Of course he could make another one, only that darn monkey hadn't eaten the blueprints. That's another can of worms entirely. You better keep an eye out for the Professor's creepy science experiments. They're everywhere. Careful when the lights go out. Remember when you were afraid of the dark? Relive the horror if you can find it and find your way out. That is referencing the fact that there is a hidden level within this level that is completely inconsequential besides potential points and extra lives to go through. I'll be showing that off after I finish the main level, I should note. Now, this level can be a little bit annoying just because some of the enemies here have a surprising amount of range, be it the weird farting floating boogers that can just kind of swipe out of nowhere, the brains that can bounce all over the place, or more potentially annoyingly, the eyes that can just infinitely spawn out of hatches in the background that you can destroy with a whip. And then you just get sections like this, where now all of a sudden we're going to have to do almost a tower defense side of the game, where we're going to have a lot of amoebas flying towards you from basically up, down, and sideways every direction. And the only way I can safely say that you'll learn this is either pattern recognition after dying to it a lot, or just flailing about wildly with the D-pad. It's the only strategy I can give here, as I feel it's the only thing that you can safely do outside of playing this game so much you have that memorized. And I'll be frank, I don't see many people doing that. And now you have to do that, I think, 2 more times? I want to say is how many times you have to do that. Also, I should note, anti-asteroids, the bonus stage where you have to race Psychro, has its own bio in the manual. In particular, ready for a wild ride through space? Well, hold on to your seat because between each level, Psychro is right on your tail. Dodge the asteroids and try knocking Psychro off his rocket backpack to help you get to the finish line alive. Grab the atomic accelerators along the way to leave Psychro eating your heavy ions. Now, of course, if you're traveling that fast, you'll want to stock up on shields, unless you're an expert pilot. Now, I'm torn because in some ways this might be my favorite level in the game because I generally love lab-style levels in terms of just the aesthetic. But between some annoying enemy placements and all that, I find myself wondering if my favorite level in the game genuinely might honestly be Big Broody, because at least it's relatively inconsequential. The first half of Tube Race, so down the tubes, or the first level. Because a lot of the other levels either can have really annoying enemies, or just really annoying gimmicks and mechanics. This does seem to be a game that people not quite soured on over time, but definitely realized, oh, we're used to better now. Because I believe when the HD version came out on PS3, 360, and I want to say it was on Steam at the time, people were like, this is pretty looking, but that's about it from memory, because they had level designs all over the place, the enemies are still annoying and all that. Maybe it's just because people remember it fondly from their childhood or something. Maybe Earthworm 2 improves on it more than I remember, because I've barely played the sequel at this point in time at least. When I eventually LP it, I probably will have practiced it a couple times by that point. Or maybe it's just genuinely more fond memories of the cartoon than anything. I've never seen a single episode of that. I should know. In fact, I wonder if that's how my brother knew about it before he knew about the game. Because he would have grown up right at the point when that show was airing, and he would have been right in that target market. Because, let's see. Broadcast at Kids WB between September of '95 and December of '96. He would have been 10 and 11. Yeah, he would have been the exact target market. Admittedly, kind of cool sections that this level does that I really do like is we have sections where we actively get thrown out of the super suit by something else, and you need to race the suit to the end of the conveyor belt to keep it and, make sure you can get to the level without dying. Waiting for the suit can be a little bit, not really tedious but annoying, I suppose, but I like that mechanic because it's at least, it's something fun without being super intrusive with how the game plays. Because I feel a lot of games, especially at times in this era, can get really scared of just relying on the strengths of their main controls and mechanics and worry more so on, here's how this thing completely changes how the game works. And there's room for that in every game, don't get me wrong. But making it half your game makes me worry if they even had confidence in the main mechanics at all in some regards. It's one of those things where, say, a Mega Man stage mechanic works because it's exclusive to that stage, but you have to use Mega Man's base set to go around it. Versus, say, what if every level you played as a different character, sort of thing? And the controls were completely different. There's specific games I'm thinking of that I'm not going to name names, but there's some that have been guilty of that since at least the PS2 era consistently. And I feel it's especially prevalent in platformers, where there should be strength in your main mechanic, versus having a bunch of mechanics that completely change how things work. Admittedly, that's also a topic I feel my opinion on can probably change depending on the day, as it really just depends on my mood in some ways. Like, I'll play things like, weirdly enough, Cool World on the Super Nintendo and be like, yeah, you know what, I'm having fun, despite it not being good. And then other days I'll be like, Mega Man's just not clicking with me today, I don't know why. That's a lie, Mega Man always clicks with me. Actually, wait, no, maybe Metroid always clicks with me. It depends on the day, is the point here. Also, there's Professor Monkey for a head. You'd figure, despite being the one who's on the cover for the stage, he'd be the most annoying enemy in the stage. But, no, he's really not. Now, there was one point in the stage earlier on that I deliberately forgot to mention something. The warp for the hidden level in this stage is literally just jumping up at one specific point and touching where a health pickup is. So if you're not careful and you're playing along, you probably already went into that level, and if you did, I'm sorry, but I'm covering that after the main one. With that said, we're coming up on the boss fight for the level, which is probably the most intense boss fight in the game, in terms of just how hard it can be to avoid the main boss fight. This is the Robotic Chicken. It is as it is listed on the tin. With that said, you actively can't damage the Robotic Chicken. You need to have the amoebas rain from the sky on top of it. Thankfully, sometimes it just decides to stand still and not do anything, so it dies pretty quickly. Other times it can be a little more annoying with its egg throws and stomping around. I think it also has a charge across the room move. But then we're on to phase 2, which is where things actually get annoying. We're in free fall, and we need to just shoot this thing before it attacks us. It'll try to charge into you from up, down, and sideways. But if you just tap the fire button, you should get it down quickly enough to the point where you'll stun it and you can just hopefully correct your positioning before it can charge back into you. This phase is rough, and I don't like it. The walls also hurt, by the way, because they're covered in spikes, I think. I try to generally stay away from them. Later on in the fight, I believe it'll start raining eggs down. It's also constantly spawning eggs, I believe, that try to just home into you, but that's another reason why you tap the fire button, so you can take those out before it really has a chance to cause any problems. And that's level 5, despite not being level 5. Before we head on off to the next major level, though, earlier on in the stage, particularly during the first major climb up, is where the hidden level is. In particular, right here with this giant this giant panel with the red lights, jump into the middle thing. Welcome to Who Turned Off the Lights. Its name is pretty indicative of its mechanic. It's dark here. You can't see the platform, so you just kind of have to jump around and hope you land on them and memorize where they are from there. Notably, I believe this level is in the original game and the special edition, but it's not in the 2010 HD version. So if you're playing that, you're just not going to be able to find this, and honestly, it doesn't really do much for the game, so I'm not too surprised at that. With that said, I like the music here. It's a nice little jaunt. It's nice and peppy. Dark mechanics in games are ones that I either hate the most or the second most. I fell there, by the way, in case you're wondering why there was a jump cut. As sometimes you get them like this, where it's just, hey, feel out the level design from there. There's no real instant kill stuff. It's just making your way to the top without falling back down. And I don't mind these types usually, they're just relatively straightforward. It's always the, hey, the area's dark until light flashes on, like through Squawks and Donkey Kong Country, Lightning, and a lot of games like Ninja Gaiden. Those are the ones I'm usually not too fond of because it really... My problem with this kind of mechanic is usually the pace and killing it does. This doesn't really feel like it kills the pace. Plus, each section is so bite-sized that you can absorb the level design pretty quickly. Oh, they have to be kind of careful in some of the later ones from memory because they're eventually... The only enemies here are these weird... I guess they're meant to be like cats or something, just patrolling in the dark. They are more than just eyeballs in terms of a hitbox, so make sure you're not standing directly below them. But you eventually have to watch out for the giant cat eyes, which will actively chase you, and you need to jump over them, as I believe this enemy is instant kill if you can't tell by the scale. And that's who turned out the lights. We're already done. Cool. So let's just move right on to the level that's actually supposed to be next, another version of Anti-Asteroids. Now, there's parts of this game I actively am not a fan of, as I've mentioned throughout before. I think the level design's a little odd, some of the enemies are a little annoying to get around and fight. Some mechanics are annoying, like you got It's Not a Problem just being a repetitious mess that gets harder and harder. Tube Race is hard. Without a doubt, my least favorite portion of the game is the next level. This is For Pete's Sake. This takes up the rest of the part, and it's an auto-scroller. Which wouldn't be too bad on its own, but it's also an escort mission with Peter the puppy here. Peter is completely invincible. No matter what hits him, he won't die, and that includes your own gun. But if he falls into a pit, he gets really angry and takes you back about maybe a screen's width. You need to get him to either the kennel at the halfway point of the stage or his house at the very end to end the level. This is absolute hell. The music's fun, but this is just a bunch of things is gonna come at you, react to them, and then wait. You can notably pause Peter's progress either by shooting, or you can actively whip him to make him jump further, but you're gonna need to get around some higher jumps. But yeah, this is not a fun level. This is a bunch of... It's bland, it's annoying, it's arguably the hardest level in the game, no matter which version of the game you're playing. I'm only taking him to the halfway point, which is where the kennel is. His house is at the end of the stage, which is roughly double the length, I think. And there are a lot of extra lives to get along that pathway, but I'm at 9 already, and I don't like this mechanic, so I'm just not gonna do that, because I don't like it. With that said, as for this level's bio, walking the dog was never like this. If you let little Peter fall, watch out, his temper gets the best of him and he mutates into a ravenous, hulking giant. If the meteor showers don't rain on your parade and the flying saucers don't blow you away, then maybe, just maybe, you'll make it through okay. Oh, did I forget to mention that the tentacles of the Unipus, like an octopus with one arm, can kill you? I believe every time you let Peter fall, you do actively take damage yourself, so watch out. And I forget if there's any checkpoints in this stage. I think there are at least 1 or 2, but I try to wipe this stage from my memory every time I play it because I like to pretend it doesn't exist. It's not fun. It's bad. But that said, I guess I could take this time to go over the fact that every character has their own little bio in the manual as well. For instance, Jim is just an ordinary Earthworm caught in a suit he doesn't understand. Faced with the daunting task of keeping the superpowered suit out of the evil clutches of his vicious enemies, you'll have to use every weapon and power you can just to keep Jim alive. And he has got weapons, whips and plasma blasters, hamsters, and other high-tech stuff. And that also extends to bosses like Chuck and Fifi from the first level. Fifi's no lovable poodle. Try a psychotic 4-legged chainsaw with a rusty chain, you'll know what we mean. Fifi wants to keep strangers away from his master's junkyard. Chuck will throw up anything he can to keep you from surviving. You need to keep your wits in order to dethrone him. Evil the cat from Stage 2, born with no heart, the ruler of Heck lives to torture others. Filling Heck with corporate lawyers and dreaded elevator music, Evil has seen to it that Jim doesn't stand a snowball's chance. Evil's snowmen are a good example of how twisted this cat really is. If you thought Heck was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Psy-Crow himself, Jim was hunted by crows all of his life, but never one with a gun. Psy-Crow is determined to get that suit back for the Queen at any cost. Because of his persistence and his twisted crow mind, you'll never know when he's gonna turn up, and by that we mean you always know it's between every level by and large. If he gets his worm hook onto you and pulls you out of the suit, Jim is as good as bass bait. You just keep your eyes open and stay on guard. Yeah, I guess that is a thing he can do in the boss fight from memory. He can take you out of the suit. but he's so easy to damage it seldom can happen in my experience. Major Mucus from Snot a Problem. From the distant Phlegm planet, Major Mucus will stop at nothing to get Jim's suit. Bouncing wildly from a tiny thread of goo, the Major's bound to be trouble. Watch out, if he gets a hold of Jim, the Snot will really hit the fan. Peter Puppy here. Peter may first look like a cute, cuddly puppy, but when he transforms into his alter ego, there's nowhere to hide. This isn't going to be just another walk in the park with Peter. Jim's supersuit helped him survive the trip through the black hole of Peter's world, but its powers might not be enough to help get him back. Professor Monkey for a head from the last stage. You'd be pretty mad too if you had a monkey sharing your head, or is the professor sharing the monkey's head? Whatever you do, don't call him Monkey Professor for a head, or he'll get really steamed. This guy is totally bananas, and he's willing to destroy Jim to prove it. Bob and number 4, who are the main cat and the goldfish from down the tubes. Bob is a goldfish with plans. Plans to steal Jim's powerful suit so he can rule the universe. He can't harm Earthworm Jim directly, but that's what the drone cat number 4 is for. This brute packs a mean punch. Whatever Bob wants, number 4 gets, and Bob wants that suit. Oh, thank God we're at the end of the level. Again, you can progress past here just to get more extra lives, but it's not worth your time, honestly, at all. But with that and that hellscape over, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're gonna go finish off the game. See you guys then.